everybody, this is Mr. Hague. Welcome to another episode of Mr. Hague's podcast. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about a rather controversial subject, which involves the College Board accepted AP African American Studies, which the governor of Florida and the supposed presidential hopeful Ron DeSantis and his crew rejected. Now, this has caused a huge uproar from not only the black community, well, from all types of communities. Now, here you have it. You have an educational curriculum approved by the College Board. Now, for those of you who don't know the College Board, they're the ones who administer the SATs and the ACTs. They're also the ones who administer AP courses. What are AP courses? Well, AP stands for Advanced Placement. And these are classes that are intended to offer college-level courses in high school in hopes of earning college credit. Our credits, as you know, the expenses of college these days, credits are expensive. So to get college credit for free is highly advantageous for any high school students looking to go to college. And there are various types of advanced placement courses, from biology to math to languages to history. Remember that one, history. So the AP African American curriculum was planned and written by scholars. And it's a curriculum that was actually given the green light by the College Board to start as a pilot course. Now, what is a pilot course? A pilot course meaning only about 60 schools around the nation will be able to offer it. So the whole intention is to kind of see how it goes, how it all plans out, and, whether it's getting good reviews. If it passes and if it looks like it's going to go well, then the College Board will say, okay, well, now we can offer it to more schools. And it becomes an actual regular AP courses, which, colleges, if they choose, they can give credit to those who took it and passed it. So me personally, I have a strong affinity towards learning about Black history in America. I wrote a screenplay on my personal hero, Harriet Tubman. And during my research about her and her times, I learned a lot. I learned about what she went through, her trials and tribulations, about the time period, about the oppression that a lot of slaves at that time had experienced. It was unthinkable. Okay, of course, I can go on with that forever, but that's another podcast. However, when I wrote it, I never intended to downgrade or criticize the slave owners or the overseers or the plantation owners or the whole slavery movement. Instead, I wrote it to glorify Harriet Tubman. In fact, I wrote it so that people can read about it and realize that despite all the obstacles, despite all the challenges, the oppressions, the whippings, the lashings, being chased by bloodhounds, being sold, being this and that, all the craziness, that they still persevered as a people. They still contributed heavily to American society, to our democracy, to our freedom. They still served in the armed forces. They still served in Congress and as politicians. And of course, we had our previous president, President Barack Obama. They still become teachers. They become surgeons. They become attorneys. They become upstanding, heavily contributing people of our society. So when I went through the curriculum of AP African American Studies, I found really nothing that would concern me. And again, students have a choice to decide which course that they want to take. You don't have to take each and every course. They can choose. Now, the African American curriculum involves 4 units, and I have a link of that on my website. You can go ahead and take a look at it and kind of see what for yourself what they have to offer and what might interest you. You are not required to take all the courses, as far as I know. There are several different selections that a student can make, and one that intrigues them. Great idea, right? Sounds like a good idea. Sounds like something that I would definitely want my son to take. I would love my students to take this AP class because from what I'm seeing, it actually commends the African American community and glorifies their accomplishments. Not so much as they say the main reason is that it makes another race feel guilty. And that's one of the reasons why the government of Florida, led by DeSantis, put a stop to it. So this Governor DeSantis, okay, I really, again, I'm in California. I don't know what life is like over there in Florida. I've been to Florida a few times, Disney World and Orlando, down to Miami, and down at the Florida Keys. Beautiful state, good people. But what really gets to me about this decision is, he comes from a certain ideology, okay, an ideology that preaches less government. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, he's talking about Republicans. Yeah, but at the same time, let me tell you, not all Republicans think alike. Not all Republicans are the same, just like not all Democrats are the same. I am more into the ideology of freedom of speech and equal rights for all. And I'm actually in favor of this AP African American studies, but not because that I'm a Democrat, because I'm not going to tell you what I am right now, but it's more about education, the freedom of the teacher to teach a course and to be able to express themselves and allow the students to make that judgment. So again, less government and less government involvement, and yet, Governor DeSantis got involved and put a stop to it. I mean, how many governors do this? If you got to look at the history behind Governor DeSantis, you'll kind of understand that he really is a defiant person. He's a defiant politician, and he got in from the blessings of President Trump. And he was able to govern his state over the COVID pandemic. And, this is a government that could care less about COVID-19. He didn't want to hear about mask mandates. He didn't want to hear about closing businesses. He didn't want to hear about closing the state. I mean, Florida is a conservative state. It is a deep red state. The Democrats there pretty much don't have a chance at this moment, and maybe not for years or decades to come. They're pretty weak over there. But, pretty much it's like he has all these litigations, all these laws that he promoted, for instance, with COVID. So let's start with, so Governor DeSantis, who has presidential aspiration, he is known to be a very defiant politician. Of course, he was serenaded by then President Trump, and following Trump and listening to Trump, he pretty much defied everything that the science community had suggested. For instance, he could care less what the scientific community said about COVID-19. He thought it was a hoax. He promoted that it was not anything big. Even though he himself got vaccinated, he didn't require that businesses or people wore masks. He didn't have the businesses shut down. He didn't have the state shut down. Okay, sounds pretty cool for if you're a conservative, but the problem is it resulted in about 85,000 people dying from COVID. And right now, there are 7.4 million cases of COVID in Florida as we speak. That's number 3 in the nation. Then he enacted this Don't Say Gay Act. Now, of course, if there's anything in this planet that is an obvious targeting and discriminating against a certain populace. I mean, it's on the title, Don't Say Gay. So basically that whole act states that the purpose is to prohibit classroom discussion. Here's where I get a problem. Classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels in a specified manner, specifically to kindergarten and third grade. Okay, so you don't want the little kiddies to hear about gay or gender identity. I didn't know that was happening. Okay, I teach high school, and I do have a gay populace. I do have a transgender populace, and I love them all. I support them. I may not identify with them. I may not understand fully, but the thing is that I respect them. But I'm at high school. I had no idea that there are teachers there who talked about this during kindergarten and third grade. I'm going to have to ask my son, who's 10 right now, who's in fifth grade. So did his third grade teacher mention anything about gender identity? Okay, I'm curious to know. So I don't understand the point of that act. That whole, I don't understand the point of that law. And the bottom line is that in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, are these people afraid that their kindergartners will turn gay? I mean, I'm not a sociologist or a psychologist, but I think that that's a little too young. And again, it seems like it's a fear-based law. I just don't see what the purpose behind it, because at that age, you're not really understanding a lot of things. You're more interested in playing games, and unfortunately these days, video games. So I just don't get that. But at any rate, let's move on. Then there's the Stop Woke Act, W-O-K-E. So in this case, woke means the awareness of racial issues, and of course, especially with social injustices. And pretty much it's about facts and issues that happened. I think it stems from the Black Lives Matter movement, from George Floyd, all the way to, well, back in the 90s, Rodney King, and then Trayvon Martin, all these incidences to Colin Kaepernick and taking the knee. They want to encourage Black Americans to be aware, to be awakened about the injustices that are happening right now. And I don't see a problem with that. And the Florida Board of Education basically gave themselves the right to punish schools that are teaching this woke movement or this woke act, different things such as critical race theory, which they claim makes one race feel guilty from the sins of the past. Well, I wonder which race that is exactly. The law sponsors or prohibits, rather, the instruction that can make students feel responsibility for past actions. I don't think this is the intention of the scholars who wrote AP African American history. When I discuss it in my classroom, I don't mean to make one race guilty. I don't even go into race discussions in my class. I listen to students who want to talk about it. I encourage free, respectful dialogue. But I think what this really does is undermine the teacher. It undermines my ability to have a discussion and be very mature about it. It's almost kind of insulting, I think, that you're shutting me up. You're telling me I can't express myself. This is so close to a violation of my First Amendment rights of free speech. The student does not have to listen. The student does not have to participate. They can just, well, in high school, if they don't like it, then, they can ask the counselor to, drop the class if they want to do that. But I just don't understand what are they so afraid of? Because by not talking about it, by not having a discussion, this is what keeps racism going. It doesn't embarrass anybody. At least I don't know anybody who is embarrassed by it, because it would be foolish to make a current generation of, like, say, white Americans feeling guilty for the past. And yes, the past, there were a lot of oppression. There's the Jim Crow movement. There was lynchings. There's all sorts of ugliness that happened. But I don't know of any current people ought to feel guilty about that, because it was not their doing. And I think it kind of belittles the scholars who created the AP African American Studies, thinking that that's their intention. And looking at the courses in this curriculum, I don't get that. But again, my concern is, who is Governor DeSantis, or any politician for that matter, tell me what to say, how to say, what to teach, when to say. I mean, yes, we do have a syllabus. I'm talking at the high school level. We have a syllabus that we create and we follow it. Okay, and that's not to say, like, say, for instance, I teach video production. I will teach them Adobe Premiere. I will teach them Photoshop. I'll teach them the software. Okay, but now, say, for instance, I want them to create a poster about gay rights, or maybe veterans' rights, or maybe, foster care awareness, all this public service announcements. What if I want them to do that? What about breast cancer awareness? What if I want to say something about that? And what if a student really wants to say something about, well, think about a while ago, there was a Stop Asian Hate. And I went to a Stop Asian Hate rally. It was a wonderful experience. Had a lot of intriguing conversations, and listening to students debate about that, and making them understand, the unfairness of this Asian hate, blaming them for the COVID pandemic. Then all of a sudden in the background, I hear, well, what about white people? Well, what about white people? How about stop hating white people? I'm like, come on, dude. That's just immaturity at its finest. No one is saying hate white people or hate. We're saying that stop blaming Asians. They're the ones who are being attacked. Okay, so anyways. So scholars decided it was time to promote African American studies, and rightly so. And as I mentioned before, Black Americans have a tremendous history in this country, from slavery to oppression to Jim Crow laws to police brutality, and of course, discrimination. A lot of it, as you can see in the notes, is still kind of going on today. However, they persevered. That's the key thing. They persevered into major contributors to our democracy, our freedoms, our way of life. And reading through this course, I mean, yes, we're going to go into this course a little bit. Again, I have a link on my website, and basically there are 4 units. And I'm going to go there right now. The whole idea here, let me see if I can go here. Okay, there it is. Okay, so again, you can basically take a whole slew of topics, okay? Each course is about 5, I see Unit 1, the origins of the African diaspora. Topics include Africa, the first look, gender, community knowledge. And Unit 2 talks about freedom, enslavement, and resistance, which, like it or not, it happened. You can't deny it. It happened, okay, in this nation. Then Unit 3, the practice of freedom, uplift ideology, the new Negro Renaissance, art, literature, music. Sounds terrific, this is really good. Unit 4, however, that's where the problem comes in. That's where Ron DeSantis and people who think like him have issues. Okay, so let's look at this right here. Unit 4, okay, if I can go to, okay, unit topic 4.19, Black Queer Studies. It means building forms of queerness that reject and give realities of the government and the market. Okay, so what's the big deal? Again, what is the fear? So topic 4.15, intersectionality and activism. Okay, so this in many ways is CRT, critical race theory. which ranks people based on their race, wealth, and sexual orientation, which basically, again, CRT, critical race theory, is not a high school thing. It may mention a few things about, how institutions and American justices and the justice system per se basically impacted negatively African Americans in the past, which it did. I mean, look what Martin Luther King stood for. I mean, it wasn't long ago where Rosa Parks had to sit in the back of the bus and then finally she refused and created a movement. It wasn't long ago where black people from Africa, it wasn't long ago where black people from Alabama were denied the right to vote. And when you did vote, you were lynched. It wasn't long. It's still happening right now where black Americans are disproportionately being thrown in jail, for longer periods of time, much more harsher sentences than other races who commit the same crime. It's happening. And yet you're afraid that this is going to cause guilt? Then, of course, there's topic 4.29, movements for Black lives. Of course, I think this basically, talks about the Black Lives Matter movement. And then 4.3.1, Black Study and Black Struggle in the 21st Century, which it's not a bad thing, but it had authors who advocates the overthrow of capitalism. Well, I hate to say this, but there are a lot of people, not just blacks, but there are whites and Asians and Hispanics that also want to overthrow capitalism. I don't see what the big deal is. Okay, so Florida, in a way, went from don't say gay to don't say black, or don't say anything else, or don't say anything that's non-white. So as a teacher, I don't want to be watched. I don't want to be watched by a government agency. I don't want to be told what to say, how to say it. I don't want to be careful. I don't want you turning my students against me. I don't want them recording everything that I say, every lecture I make. I don't want them recording this, sending it home to their mom and dad, and all of a sudden it gets sent to the district, and all of a sudden, Mr. Hague was talking about critical race theory. He's making me feel like crap because my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather owned slaves. Come on now. I mean, what is that all about? So now you're pitting students against teachers, parents against teachers. You're also saying that you're pitting the government against the teachers. You're controlling the school board. I mean, come on. Can you say fascism? You don't want to. Why don't you want to teach this? Why don't you want to teach this? Because you, Governor DeSantis, and everyone like you, think it's a bad thing. I don't think everybody does. Hey? Here's the question, okay? I mean, I don't think when you feel guilt, when you make a teacher feel guilty about what they're teaching, they give in. I don't think anyone, conservatives or liberals, Republicans or Democrats or independent, I don't think they want that. I mean, the Southeast is a haven for disinformation education. You had the Daughters of the Confederacy saying that the Confederate War wasn't fought for slavery. Okay, you know what? You can teach them however you want. And to me, that's more indoctrinating than AP African American Studies. I just don't understand why people defend the obvious wrongs of the country. There were wrongs. Everybody made wrongs. Every religious made wrongs. Every race made wrongs. Hey, it's better to teach and allow for critical thinking. You control education, you control thinking. You control thinking, you control the person. And do you really want a nation where the people are controlled? Do you really want a nation where the people just kind of listen to a single dictator or leader and do exactly what they're being told, even though it might result in the deaths and oppression of millions and millions of people? Do you really want a country like that? I think this thing in Florida is not only unconstitutional, it's downright dangerous. And again, I will not keep my students from critical thinking, whether I agree with it or not. I allow them to be thinkers, and they can express themselves the way they want. I have gay students, I have transgender students, I have black students, I have white students, I have Asians, I have all kinds of students. And the only thing I see are students. These people look up to me to educate them, to make them better people. And I look up to them to make me a better teacher, that we can have a good dialogue. I don't want to be careful how I teach. I can understand if I personally insult somebody. I can understand that. No teacher should be allowed to say that, as in the case the rest of society. However, this whole don't say gay act and stop woke act, and this whole response where the government is some sort of heroic rescuer, who are you really trying to rescue, and who are you really, really hurting? Well, I applied to the University of Florida to get a master's degree in social media studies. I'll tell you what, I will rescind my application. At any rate, with that being said, this is Mr. Hague for Mr. Hague's Class. If you have any questions or comments about this, please send me an email at mrhaguesclass@gmail.com. And that's it. Okay? Power to the people. Take care.